Hi, welcome to Eye Openers. I'm your host, Brittany Drozd, and each week I bring you insightful conversations with entrepreneurs that will help you make more money, become a strong leader, and build a business culture that you're proud of. Grab your coffee and let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Eye Openers. Thank you guys so much for joining me, because without you, I would just kind of be talking to myself or having a conversation with my lovely guest today, Dorine. Hi, Dorine. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thank you so much. This is going to be great. I'm excited.
Good. I love to hear that. And I hope you guys, the audience members, are excited as well, because you know what we do here. We have eye-opening conversations about business in your life, how they can be integrated, how you can more fully align with what you want to truly create for yourself. And at the beginning of each one of these conversations, I'm super excited about what we are about to create. But half of my business insights and successes are fueled by caffeine. So today, I am traveling. I'm not in my usual home studio here. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm doing some client work, and I have the lovely hotel Starbucks coffee, which is not my typical, but you know what? Sometimes we just need a little boost. And I heard the other day, I was listening to Andrew Huberman's podcast, the Huberman Lab, and he said 90% of the globe drinks caffeine. I had no idea it was that many people. Did you know that, Dorine?
I did not know that statistic. I'm not surprised by it, but I did not know it.
What is your eye-opening beverage of choice?
Well, before I go hiking at 5 in the morning, I take a double shot of an espresso and nothing else. And then when I come back, I have to spend the next 2 hours hydrating and drinking more water than I drink in an entire week, because I'm a camel and I usually drink it all at the end of the day. And I'm trying to change that and do better with it.
Oh yeah. It's, I've noticed more and more, the importance of water with my caffeine intake. And so I actually do 2 glasses of water before I have coffee in the morning. And I find like preloading with the water is actually really helpful to rehydrate my body, because we lose so much hydration overnight when we sleep.
Exactly. So I am trying to get better at it.
And then I love this early morning hiking. Is that something that is a regular practice for you?
It became a regular practice back in October when I decided to hike Kilimanjaro, and I decided, well, I'm a biker, not a hiker. I hung my bike up on the wall and decided I need to hike 4 times a week to get ready for this hike. So I'll be ready for it. And now I'm hooked on it. I'm not an early morning person, but because it's 110 in Scottsdale today, it's 5 in the morning or never. So I've had to adjust my biorhythms for a short period of time until winter hits again.
Right. Well, that's a nice problem to have there in Scottsdale. I love the heat. But that is a pretty warm day. Well, a nice morning hike is certainly an eye-opening experience in itself. But let's give the audience here an idea of why you're here today with us and why they should be listening to what you have to say. So I'm going to teach you guys a little bit about Dorine here. So Dorine Rivers, or River to your friends, you actually grew up in on the North and South American rivers, rafting, wild whitewater rapids. Oh, that's a tongue twister there. Wild whitewater rapids, basking in the sun, sleeping under a canopy of brilliant constellations. You transferred by osmosis her enthusiasm for the outdoors to all 5 of your children. That is incredible. And 20 grandchildren. I mean, that in of itself is a full-time kind of life experience. But in addition to raising beautiful kids, you have an undergraduate degree in creative writing and a PhD in business management, investment banking, and a contractor's license. Wow. So beyond like so many extra things that you have too. This is quite the bio I'm moving through. You're the CEO of Alpha 81, an Arizona-based firm successfully supporting corporate innovations, expansions, and exits in software, technology, medical, and the life sciences, among other industries. Your expertise is in strategic planning and management and building effective business structures by creating and identifying growth opportunities and providing advisory services. Welcome to the podcast, Dorine. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate that. I have done a lot in my lifetime, and rather than be the person who subscribes to what Malcolm Gladwell talks in Outliers, which is 10,000 hours in a very narrow funnel and becoming an expert in that, I've taken a horizontal look to all of this, and I know a little bit about a whole lot of things. And I have found that to be quite useful in the business of business consulting, because it allows me to draw problem solving skills from lots of different areas. In fact, maybe I draw a problem solving skill from construction that actually has to do with product development in a healthcare company, for example. And it is actually has served me well, even though it has been fueled by being an overachiever. It actually has come in handy at many times.
Awesome. Well, tell us, how do you know if you have a great idea in business or in life?
I'll answer that by telling you a story about my first business and how I knew that we had a great idea. When I was 8 years old, my brother and I were riding our bikes down the street, and we saw all these lemonade stands, and they all pretty much looked the same. And they were all selling a cup of lemonade for 1 cent. And we thought, well, we could start our own business, but we don't want to do the same thing everyone else is doing. So we decided we were going to take those old-fashioned metal ice cube trays and fill them with different flavors of Kool-Aid and put them in the freezer. And the trick is halfway through the freezer process to remember to go in and stick in the toothpicks. When they're all done freezing, you can pull them out, and you have these little tiny popsicles that we called cubesicles. We sold those for 2 cents a piece, which, if you do the quick math, is twice as much as a lemonade. But at the end of the week, we had everybody's lemonade business because it was new, it was novel. And even though it was double in price, people were willing to pay it because it was something new and it was actually a great product. So we knew we had a great idea because we had everybody else's business and no one was doing what we were doing. And so you can look at your idea for either a product or service, and you can do it 2 ways. You can create something that you love and go out and try and find a market for it. Or you can go in and look at the competitors that are close to what you think you want to be doing and read the reviews and read the comments and find out what those consumers wish that this product had that does not. And then you can go and create that. And now you have a built-in market because you've created something people want, not something that you love that you're trying to tell them that they want. So that's a good rule of thumb to go in and do your marketing, find out who your target market is, and then find out what they want and start with that.
Yeah. So have you applied this model to businesses beyond popsicles, like in your own businesses?
I have been starting either my own businesses or helping many, many different entrepreneurs start their business for 30 years. And the book that I just launched a couple of months ago called Brain to Bank, How to Get Your Idea Out of Your Head and Cash In, is the culmination of those 30 years of working with other businesses. And a lot of the stories in there are horror stories of what people have done or not done in starting their business and how it affected the outcome of whether that business was profitable or even still in business. And so it's about, here's what these guys did wrong. Here's what they should have done. And it's every chapter has a lesson or more to be learned about how to go about doing this. And it's actually a roadmap and it's a blueprint on how to start a business that perhaps you don't know where to start. And it's like, here's where to start. Chapter 1.
What do you see any patterns and themes over those 30 years as far as like what holds people back or what their challenges are at certain growth points in the business? So for instance, like when they figured out the basics of making money and they're making their first few hires, you said helping people get get things out of their head and into action, so what holds people back, let's say, in that kind of second stage of growth where they're starting to grow their team?
That's a super great question, because I just finished another book that'll be out, but it's called Working Together, and it's called The Beauty and Freedom of Outsourcing. So what happens is people start building their team and they think they need to hire all these people, and then they're going to have all this in-house staff, and then they're going to have an overhead office because they have in-house staff, and then they're going to have payroll they have to meet every week. And all of these problems emerge with thinking that you need to hire everyone that you're working with. And Chapter 7 in Brain the Book, as well as Working Together Alone, talk about the beauty of outsourcing, which is you can choose who you want to work with, when you want to work with them, how much you're going to pay them, and how long they're going to work with them. So most of the time, it's for one project, and you need a specialist in there. And let's say you decided you are launching a new product, and you're going to create a sizzle video that's 1 minute long that's going to tell people about your product. And you are going to have someone put together all the visuals, but you still need an editor for that. So you can find an editor to do just that project. He's not your employee. You're not paying taxes on him. You're not having to provide insurance for him and all the many things that go with having employees. He's there for 1 week to do your editing. You pay him, you're done. If you love this guy, then you're going to put him in a folder that says freelancers that I love to use. And you don't have an overhead for that. You have a single cost for a part of the project. You can put your whole project together that way. All of a sudden you have your sizzle video with no employees, but you have a great product because you were able to choose the best person for that project for a specific amount of time.
What a great point. I do this in my business. In fact, I have probably like 8 people that are 1099s that I use frequently in my business, whether it's other coaches that I bring in for projects, facilitators, all the way to like my assistant and IT person who does a lot of big technical work for me, and graphic designers, like everything you're talking about. It has been so important in building my business. What do you think about people who are actually ready for some of those full-time employees? Like what challenges tend to come up there?
I think it's to take your time hiring and picking the right person. Years ago, it feels like a newer book to me, but years ago, there was a book by Jim Collins called Good Gray. He talks about getting the right people on the bus, and it's still a great thing to think about. Take your time choosing who you're putting on the bus, because it's a lot harder to get them off the bus than it is to get them on the bus. So you want to choose them carefully. Do they align with your values of who you are and how you want to run this company? That's probably the most important thing to ask. You're building a culture here. Do they fit into that, or are they sort of sideways on that and they're going to end up rubbing you the wrong way because they don't quite fit in, and then they're not going to be happy and they're not going to do good work and they're not going to stay there anyway. And there's a whole series of questions to ask yourself and then the potential candidates. But at some point, when you have that growth spurt and you really need someone full time, it's going to be positioned like operations. It's going to be financials. It's going to be maybe marketing and branding. It depends on, what your product is or what your service is, what comes to the forefront as to what you need and who you need. But a lot of companies these days are virtual companies. They don't have brick and mortar, and they get together on a Zoom call every Monday and they talk about what they're going to do next. Now, that doesn't mean they're not full-time employees, but there are several different ways to do this. And I'm in my personal businesses, I never have the brick and mortar. I am always virtual because I want to handpick people all over the world that work for me. And I end up being international and global out of the gate. because whoever I hire may not live right here in Scottsdale. And that doesn't mean they can't be a full-time employee. And it doesn't mean they're not part of the growth opportunities of being decision makers in the company. It just means I'm choosing that particular model.
Right. I was having this conversation yesterday with a company that I work with, and we're talking about how difficult it can really be to assess for some of those things when you're trying to hire. And having the background you do, I'm just curious, what strategies do you help your clients either build or use during the hiring process to help them understand, hey, is this person a good fit? Or how do I know that they're going to have the attributes that I'm looking for? What do you think about hiring, and how can we solve for that problem? Because the data shows, like, actually, we're just not very good at it as humans. We're not super consistent.
Well, for a very long time, resumes were the way that you weeded everybody out, right? And then artificial intelligence kicked in. And unless you have certain keywords in your resume, you get kicked out as a potential hire because you forgot to put in a keyword, and no one has ever seen your resume. A computer kicked you out, and then you die on the vine and you're off the list of people to consider. So, that's a tough way to approach hiring somebody. I suppose bigger corporations are almost forced to do it because of the onslaught of people responding to job potentials and descriptions and things. But on smaller companies, there's this thing called Zoom, and you get to see them, and you get to read body language, and you get to read tone, and you get to have them answer questions they didn't think they had to answer, and see how they do. And do they stumble? Do they falter? Are they honest? Are they authentic in their answers? It's the next best thing to being in person. In person is absolutely the best because you actually feel their energy and the vibes of who they are. And if you're going to have a brick and mortar and you're going to have a place where everybody meets, in-person interviews are the only way to go because you get to feel the energy of that person. And to me, the intuition of your initial thought about somebody holds a lot of weight. So I always take note of that. And you can do a lot of things. I mean, personality testing used to be a big thing. I made a big joke about that, and I wrote an article for Human Resources magazine one time about just taking them to lunch and having them drive and see what lane they drive in on the freeway, and then see what they order. And for $5, and you took them to lunch instead of $1,500 for personality test, whether to hire them or not. And there's some truth to that, though. So that in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting will tell you more than looking at a piece of paper that maybe they paid someone to write.
Right. That's a really good point, that there's so much we can learn from just observing and just sharing space with somebody. It's a good point. What is something that comes up in your work that, like, if there was one or two things you wanted people to really understand? So most of our listeners are leaders or entrepreneurs themselves. What are the one or two super important points that you want people to leave this conversation with?
I would say the most important thing is that if you have an idea for your business, or you're already in your business and you're trying to figure out how to put your product forward, or even what products, plural, to create for your company, anybody can do anything they decide to do. You can figure out the details of it. The question is, how badly do you want it? And then you set out your program and your roadmap and the steps that you need to get there. And then the most important next step is to take the first step. And once you take the first step, you've already made the commitment to yourself. You're not going to quit until you get there. And then you keep going until you get there. That first step is difficult because people let fear of failure drown out the fact that they have this dream and this goal and this idea. Fear is nothing more than fear. Look at it and say, I'm afraid of this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then you take that first step and you follow your roadmap until you get there. You don't quit.
I really love that insight that I'm afraid and I'm going to do it anyway. I think people sometimes get stuck in that and they think because I'm afraid, I'm paralyzed, like I'm stuck in paralysis. I'm not going to move. But the truth is you can be afraid and take action anyway. I mean, gosh, I have like a long list of points in my business and moments where either I was meeting with a prospect and I had a new offering I wanted to talk about and just like being scared to mention or fearful of rejection. There have been so many different growth moments where I was scared and I needed to take action anyway. And it's the most, you feel so alive. It's so, it creates such vibration and an energy in my body, like after I have those moments, because I took action anyway and I made it to the other side and I didn't die. And I say that like with such purpose and intention because it's literally the experience we're having in our body. Like when our amygdala is firing and when we're really in that fear zone is like, we think what's on the other side of this action might actually kill us. But time and time again, I realize it doesn't kill me and it makes it easier to move forward even with the fear. So when we see people who are brave, it's not necessarily that, they have more courage than us. They're just able to sit with that feeling of the fear and still take a step, like you said.
I think that's a great insight. And it really comes down to saying, okay, I am afraid. Now I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to start.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Mel Robbins has a similar thing where she just says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you just do the thing.
And you say, okay, so I'm afraid. I recognize that. Then it's kind of like, who isn't?
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it anyway. So now I'm starting.
Mm-hmm. What's a challenge that's in front of you right now that you're moving forward with fear or understanding it's your edge of growth?
Well, artificial intelligence is sort of the buzzword of the entrepreneur world right now. It's one of those exponential technologies that is moving so rapidly, it's hard to keep up with actually what's going on, let alone trying to learn what's going on. But I'm taking the challenge to become really good at it. And I already have at least 2 businesses to integrate that into what I'm going to start this year. But it begins with me learning what it's all about and then which of those tools I might be able to utilize the best to do the projects that I have in mind. And that's a daunting task because it's a huge thought process. It's a huge leap in technology. Is that going to stop me? No, I'm just going to find people that are going to help explain it to me and tell me where to go next. And then I'm going to say, all right, 1, 2, 3, I'm starting right now.
I love it. Love it. Well, Dorine, it has been so fantastic to have you on Eye Openers today. Your breadth and depth of experience is just, I can feel it in the way that you speak, that a confidence and a willingness to move forward, even if you don't have all the answers. And that to me is just so inspiring. And I want to thank you for coming on and sharing that with the audience and me.
I had a great time, and I hope there's some takeaways for your listeners that change their life.
Awesome. So how can people find you if they want to have a conversation or learn more about what you offer or find your books?
The best place to start is alpha81.com. And then the book is at braintobank.com. There are a lot of free resources on that website. You can email me from either website. I'm happy to have conversations and to help you get to where you want to go.
Awesome. So wherever you're hearing this, we have that information in the show notes. So just look for the links there and definitely take Dorine up on her offer. So like I said at the beginning of the show, if it wasn't for you guys, the awesome audience members, it would just be me having a conversation. And it's so much more fun though to know that other people are benefiting from our little conversation here and that your ideas and resources are getting out into the world. So thank you guys for always joining us. If you are new to Eye Openers, please subscribe. It really helps us get the word out. And if you've been forwarded our email about the show, please make sure to subscribe to that list as well. Until next time, guys, please keep being brave, keep moving forward, even if it's scary, even if you have fear, because that is where the real growth happens. So thank you guys again for joining and see you soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on Eye Openers. Make sure to visit BrittanyDrose.com/podcast for this week's show notes. And if you found value in today's episode, I would so appreciate you giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts or share it with a friend. Also, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. This all helps to support the show.